Okay, I'll do a test. I'll test, see if it's working. We'll wait about 20 seconds just to verify with Scott.
Provo at 5. She left Provo at 5 and hopes to be here by 7.
Is it working?
But no, because she's gonna come. But
How about now? I'll just keep talking in the microphone. It's good. You can probably hear them. It's good. Mayor, you're good. We're live on YouTube.
Okay, welcome to the October 22nd North Logan City Council meeting. We will excuse Joni temporarily. She is on her way. We'll start with our opening ceremony. Emily will give us an opening prayer, after which, Buzzy will lead us in the pledge, after which Emily will say the prayer.
Will the audience please rise and repeat after me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. We thank Thee for the moisture that our community has received, and we thank Thee for the success of the Pumpkin Walk. Please help us, Heavenly Father, as we gather to discuss city business, that we can have open minds and clear objectives as we try to make the best decisions for our city. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I know, but we will shortly have the entire Green Canyon varsity tennis team. So I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda with some flexibility on when we recognize that tennis team.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Emily, second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then let's start with our recognition of an exemplary staff member or crew. This is nominated by the Parks Department, Mary Corey. She says, a huge thank you to Ryan Campbell and his amazing crew, along with all the many hands who helped make this year's North Logan Pumpkin Walk a success. The countless hours you all dedicated before, during, and after the event are truly appreciated. This is such a wonderful community tradition, and it wouldn't be the same without your hard work. I'll add to that Kenny and I went to the Pumpkin Walk with some mayors on Saturday, and it's always just the best time to show off, and they're always very envious of such a well-attended community event run by volunteers. So kudos to them. Every year I notice they just make little tweaks that make it even better. So join me in giving them a hand of applause. All right, Chief Thompson, will you start with your report?
Hello. Real quick, we finally finished, we're hoping, the process of the RFP for the EMS services. We did that presentation last night at Logan City Council. Don't know if anyone tuned in for that riveting conversation, but it was unique, right? Like here we are, bidding for our own system, but we did it. We did it thoroughly. We took it super serious, went through all the aspects that the state asked us to do, cost, quality, and access. And so I do have that presentation available. I got the slides available if anyone's interested. I also shared the full proposal with the mayor and Alan, and I'm happy to distribute that. It actually is the entire document. It's just a lot of dry reading, but I'm happy to circulate it. Pretty much my presentation was the summary of that whole proposal, just the highlights. So that feels good to have that done. Hopefully now we can resubmit to the state for relicensure, and we'll be off and running. Here in the quarterly report, I know that was just barely circulated. Calls are very similar at this stage this year as they were last. Obviously, an August highlight would have been the significant fire in Green Canyon that we had. And everyone's pretty familiar with that. Also, last week, Thursday, probably one of our more serious vehicle accidents we've had this year occurred in North Logan. As you probably saw, we actually looked at 10 patients and actually I believe we transported 5 of those 10. So pretty bad crashes. You'll notice we had 16 in the zone here in North Logan alone. So I don't know if that's really a surprise to people, but it seems like plenty. So be careful out there. I think looking forward, I think we're getting closer to, we're going to discuss later. I'm not going to take too much more time because maybe be chiming in a little bit as we discuss House Bill 48, kind of where we've landed in conversations with Alan and Scott on that in terms of helping propose an ordinance to get passed before the end of the year. So unless there's any questions about the quarterly report or the proposal with the RFP for EMS.
Any questions for Chief? Oh, all right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome, awesome. We had a busy week. First off, I guess I wanted to report on the pumpkin walk and the roundabout and how that affected it this year. In years past, with that four-way intersection, we've had traffic backed up every direction forever, blocks and blocks, it seems like, and it's been a huge problem. This year, the roundabout was fantastic, huge success. People were able to get through really fast. And we changed it this year to where we let a few people go through who probably shouldn't have. One was going to see her friend, Fred, like Fred, really. Okay, we let her through, but we didn't question as many people that were going through, and the citizens were really good to hold up their pumpkin passes and things. And so traffic moving eastbound went fantastic this year. So
You
overall,
gestured towards Alan when you told that story. Was it him dressed up trying to get through? Okay.
go to see Fred, yeah. Overall, like I said, on our end, for the police end, traffic was much easier this year with the help of the roundabout there. So we're excited for that. That was a good thing for us. Other than that, as far as updates, we've hired one, Zach Checketts, and I've talked, kind of thrown out the idea of actually at the next city council having Mayor swear him in
Oh, okay.
on that, and that gives you an opportunity also to meet some of our new officers on that. So we're really down just the one now position that we're looking at, which is fantastic. We've been trying to get fully staffed for a long time on that. Calls are up slightly for the year. We're up 124 calls compared to this time last year. Our traffic is barely up. We're about 15 more traffic stops this year than we were last year at the same time on that. So we're kind of doing this settling down just a little bit on that. And then for priority calls, we had 33 priority calls this time. Number one, first one of that was accidents. We had 10 accidents, one of those being that PI that Chief Thompson was talking about. That one was a huge cluster. That took a lot of time. We flew the drone on that one, as well as tried to get some reconstruction numbers for them. We had medicals followed as number 2, and then domestic violence is number 3 on that. You can see the graph there on where those fill in at. So 34% of the 96 calls that were for North Logan were priority type calls. And the rest of them in that upper right-hand corner, you can kind of see what we were dealing with. The 911 hang-ups, the VINs, the attempt to locates, some of those things like that. The other thing that I wanted to point out this year, or on this week, was our site to warning ratio. That's down in the bottom right-hand corner there. Site to warning, so this is a really good mix. What we're seeing is that the officers are citing the people that really need to be cited. Egregious type behavior, egregious speed, very reckless, those type of things. That's what they're being cited for. And so we had 51% to 49%, 21 cites, 20 warnings on that. So fairly even kill with our officers on that. So all in all, it's been busy, but we're doing good. Are there questions that you have? Or?
I only have one, and this is maybe if we need to discuss it another time, I understand. That accident that happened in North Main is just pointing out to me how dangerous that intersection is. Are there things we need to change, or is this a huge stop? Like, is there things we can change? Because I've heard multiple reports of near accidents. It seems that that is an accident-prone intersection. Is there anything we can do to help that?
It is an accident prone. There are lots of accidents there. That is a UDOT thing in question.
And we've talked to them multiple times about the speed limit. So
I just wondered, I do know if you were traveling east on 2500, do we have control on the speed limit right there. I just know it drops significantly really quickly, and there are people who maybe travel that at a very, very high rate of speed, like it goes from, what is it, 55 to 30 really fast. Do we have control over this limit there?
Once it's off Main Street, yeah.
Can we slow it down before, like, on the other side of Main Street, or is that not us anymore?
Not us on the other side, but anything east of Main Street, we do have this discretion over.
Yeah.
And we can look into that. It's a really good point though, because this is something that we bring up with UDOT constantly. And it's something more real the closer you are to the situation. So for us, it's a very real. For them, it's more of a statistic. So bringing these stats to the table is the only thing that's going to sway UDOT. And so having the data that Chief has provided, taking the drone footage of the things, the details of these accidents really does help. And the mayor's reaching out because the mayor's instigated kind of or initiated a study that will take place from this intersection all the way up to Smithfield. We're kind of asking and telling UDOT they need to do a study for that area because of these types of safety concerns. We're pushing really hard on the speed limit. We've heard from countless businesses and residents regarding the speed. They do not like to listen to anything regarding speed or questions, but it is a factor in just about it wasn't the primary factor in this accident is what I understand. However, it is a factor in every single accident that occurs there. We have had 4 fatalities there in the last 10 years. Any fatality is unacceptable in my opinion. And so we need to look into different methods there to increase safety, to push UDOT to increase safety on their intersection.
So 2500 north, that's west of Main Street, is that UDOT as well? Like,
That's a UDOT, the road going out.
That's a
when
state
they're
road.
I was gonna say, when they're looking at all the intersections, are they
Mhm.
also, are they looking at both directions then too?
Yeah, they look at the whole thing, but as we're pushing, the main thing that we can push for is a reduction in speed throughout that area. It's way too high. And so looking at something that might drop it down to like 45 would be something very reasonable in our opinion, but that's the thing we'll push for with this study.
Remind me, when you're going east on 25 or northwest of Main Street, is there a notification signal now when the lights are going to change? You know how UDOT started adding those? There's not, right? I wonder if that's something we could do right away that we could convince them that might be needed there.
We might want to look into that.
Yeah.
Even 10 miles an hour, I think would help a lot, because I don't think it needs to be going on the east side. 30 miles an hour seems very appropriate, and I don't know if we should change this speed limit on
Yeah.
our side.
Welcome, Joni.
That's all I have.
Anyway,
I'll also just say, we really appreciated the chief and Sergeant Pugmire and Hodges, they presented to the Mayor's Association about sextortion and then also e-motorcycles. And I think that's been a really great thing. It's obviously something that other jurisdictions are talking about. And I think chiefs kind of put us in the center of that conversation. So I think that was it was really effective and really riveting. So thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
If real quick, the accident that we were discussing, has a root cause been determined for that accident?
Yes, so that, it came down to a medical issue, a diabetic
Oh.
issue
Okay. Okay.
that he suffered. It does put into question though, why he had a license on that. That was not the first one. And so there's some things that we need to talk about there with the driver's license division.
I'm not a traffic expert by any means, but when I hear from UDOT that speed is never a factor in any of these things, I kind of giggle. Kenny will love this because he loves analyzing these types of engineering type aspects. I don't get how speed is not a factor in the severity of anything that takes place throughout there, whether it's medical or not. The severity of any accident is a factor of speed.
There was a high
So-
speed there. He was not aware, I guess, because of his medical stuff, that speed was extremely high when he ran at that stationary traffic there, leading to some pretty severe injuries. So,
Okay, thanks, Chief.
thank you.
All right, we'll jump back to recognition of the Green Canyon Girls tennis team. Thank you guys for coming tonight. All right, I will read this proclamation. Whereas the North Logan City Council takes great pride in celebrating the achievements of our local youth and fostering a spirit of community, and whereas the Green Canyon High School tennis team has demonstrated exceptional skill, dedication, and sportsmanship throughout the season, and whereas through their hard work, teamwork, and determination, the team has achieved the remarkable honor of winning the state championship for the second year in a row, and whereas this victory reflects not only the talent of the players, but also the commitment of their coaches, families, and the entire Green Canyon High School community. And whereas the success of the tennis team serves as an inspiration to all students in our community, encouraging them to pursue excellence in their own endeavors. Now, therefore, I, Lindsay Peterson, Mayor, on behalf of the City of North Logan, do hereby proclaim our heartfelt congratulations to the Green Canyon High School tennis team for their outstanding achievement in winning the state championship. We commend their hard work and dedication and encourage them to continue striving for greatness in all their future pursuits. Congratulations, you guys. You've made us all proud and we're so impressed. Do you guys want to come do a picture? 5th year of we will make that edit because that is important.
Stupid
I'll
spell
do it
check
right
must have
now.
changed that.
I'll
Yeah.
do it right now. 5th.
That's impressive.
Should we just stand
Alright.
behind?
Yeah.
Emily, stand down.
Oh, yeah. We'll stand behind. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
We'll follow them. Say 40 love.
Just come down, you guys be
Okay.
It would be too wide. That's why she's the mayor. See you next year, right?
6 years. That is cool. 5.
Let's just end the meeting on that.
I agree.
We will.
Thank you.
You want to play 7?
Double digits. Right?
I'll sign it and then send you a copy. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Did they already? Oh, well, yes, already. I know it's on my radar. No, it's on my radar, so
We got one citizen.
if and when they do it.
Yeah,
I'm just
we
done.
need our picture
That'd
with
be,
you.
I mean,
Yeah, most dedicated citizen is going to go award. Russell, we're talking about you. We're going to get a picture with you as most dedicated citizen.
I'm not.
You earned it.
I think it'd be awesome. Okay, all right, we're just making plans for future state champions, so. All right, Alan, try and follow that up with strategic directives and jazz it up a little, would ya?
Sorry. Okay, we'll go through this. We'll go over the items regarding the city center, the community center at the end of the meeting, but the website is up and running. If you have any edits, let us know. It looks fantastic, but there are a few things that we've edited in the past week, and we'll continue to make those edits. It's such a massive website for a municipality, so we have to always continuously make those updates. Let me know, though, if you see anything on that. The master signage and wayfinding, we'll probably have interviews this next week. I'll coordinate that with the committee. Buzzy, you're already
you're
at
here.
the meeting, or Joni, you're here. Sorry, and we'll jump down through here. The water, Jordan's not here tonight, so I'll just give you an update on that right now, regarding those items. Um, so the chlorine contact chamber just west of the treatment plant, their last pour I think is this week, for that facility, which will be fantastic, and that will add anywhere from 300 to 400 gallons per minute up to 1,000 gallons per minute in the high flow times throughout the year. That's a tremendous addition to our system. Just to put it in perspective, a very high producing well is around 2,000 to 3,000 gallons per minute. A lot of wells throughout the area can go down to 100 to 200, which are very low producing. So this is a very good source for the community. So that's fantastic. And then the 4 million gallon tank, the floor's been poured, and then in the next month, the other portions of that tank will be poured. They'll start working on the walls. They're building the columns right now on the floor. So that facility is progressing as well. Jumping down through, and we did close on the bond this last week. That was an adventure in and of itself to close on that. That took about 5 to 10 meetings with 10 to 20 people in each meeting to get that close. So thanks to everyone that helped out with that for those water resources. Sewer, they all are going through and they're cleaning. They're looking for infiltration as well. They'll take care of that with both the in-house data, and then Twin D will come in and help with a portion of that, which really helps the city. The less water infiltration we have, the less money we have to pay.
Do you need any help from the city officers?
You guys know a lot about the sewer. Maybe
Me
we'll have
too.
you come down and climb in a manhole. I wouldn't recommend it. So, jumping down through here, streets. They've been doing several different projects the past few weeks. They've been helping with the cemetery road. There's a portion of that we have to reconstruct. So hats off to them for going through that. They've spent countless hours working on that. So thanks to them and working on that and helping with that process. And also Naomi Drive. That's nearing completion. That's been a several month project getting that up and running. And also the Deer Haven injection well, that was a large project. So they've done several projects in the past couple of months, and thanks to them for doing that. Stormwater was helping out with that, and then they've also been doing their stormwater master plan, which in the next few months will bring before the city council once it's completed. We've never had a stormwater master plan, so sorry. Normally we're updating master plans. This will be our first master plan for stormwater, so that's fantastic to have that in place, and that'll guide future projects. Engineering, great news on that as well. So 2850 has been paved. That's the one west of Main Street. Around the corner on Main Street, that frontage, that deceleration and acceleration lane and access off of that parcel to the future McDonald's has all been paved. That's a huge component of that project, and a very large and expensive project that just went in. So thanks to all those who helped out with that. 12th East, that was paved this week, so they have a portion of that. The last remaining item of that road is just the bridge, and that will arrive in early November, and then they'll pave after that. Is the plan right now. But temperatures do have to reach a point to pave as to hit at least 50 degrees, so we'll watch that and see if we can hit that point, so we can pave that portion. Coming down through parks, as out of them, they've been slowly working on the pumpkin walk. But then also helping out with things like burials and other things throughout the week. So they had a very busy week the past couple weeks. So thanks to them. Trails were wrapping up an alignment study. We'll be doing that this next week with Sunrise. They're also helping out with our grants that we received for both BST and for the Twin Ditch Canal over here with the Safe Route to School. So we'll meet with them this next week to wrap up a few portions of that. Recreation, again, they've had several pumpkin events, but also flag football, soccer, all of those things have been wrapping up. And then they're starting several other things right now. We'll go over the major events this weekend. Friday is the Pumpkin Carnival, and Saturday is the Pumpkin Toss and Pumpkin Drop. We'll go over details on that later in the meeting. Jumping down through, like I mentioned, cemetery, there's lots of things taking place there. Community development, Scott will go over some key updates at the end of the meeting. They have several things coming up, and massive, after 2.5 years, updates to the code. So kind of the fruits of going through the general plan process and everything that Scott and the Planning Commission have been working on. So thanks to them. Economic development, there's several things taking place right now, including that McDonald's that's finalizing some of their plans right now. So that's great news. Jumping down through, I'm going to jump down. Human resource, we've had the interview for the employee that will take over human resources this next year. They've gone very well. It's down to 2 candidates, and they're both fantastic candidates. So we're just going to kind of narrow down that process. Recorder, thanks to recorder, treasurer, HR, everyone that's been involved in the audit. They've wrapped up the audit. I think we'll have 1 or 2 findings at most. So thanks to them, that's incredible. And they'll probably do the report on the 19th of November in that meeting. Library, Trent's just coordinating kind of the huge project, and he sent out emails to the whole community about how he's going to transition and keep the library up and running. So if you need more details on that, he can provide those. And thanks to the police and fire for their updates. Please, thanks for helping out with the pumpkin walk. That was incredible. Yeah, I don't have the numbers yet, but that was a very large pumpkin walk.
But did we have someone counting?
No, they do estimates every year. It's so hard to keep track of everything because it goes from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. I can just tell you this much though. I've never been to the pumpkin walk at 3 p.m. where there's been a line. Lines usually don't start until 4 or 5 p.m. Every day of the pumpkin walk, there was a line at 3 p.m. And the day I was there, the 2 days I was there, the line at 3 p.m. was about half an hour to 45 minutes wait just to get into the pumpkin walk at 3 p.m. So I don't know what it ended up at. Someone said around 1 hour and 45 to 2 hours.
I'll do you one better. Sundays, like I'll tell the secret that like Sundays are the day to go because no one's manning it, but it's usually a ghost town. There was a wait on Sunday to go, just so you know. So it was incredibly busy.
Yeah, hats off to everyone. That's a multi-department. That's a huge involvement of everyone, and obviously the 50 to 100 volunteers that participate in that. That is incredible. So thanks to everyone for those for the help they provided.
One thing the mayor and I were talking about on Saturday was something just to think about is there a way to scale the pumpkin walk? Because it's clearly we've reached about, capacity with if we have a hour plus wait for the whole time. Is there a way to scale it up to where we can accommodate the greater influx of people still?
I'll bring that up with the committee. That's a good question because they originally planned for the pumpkin walk just for that one area, and they've kind of capped the number of scenes that they have. But maybe if it spreads out, I know that one year the line was around 2 hours, and then they had people come in from each direction, trying to accommodate people, and it was cold that night, and they didn't want them to wait too long. In my opinion, that was a disaster though, because half the people didn't get to really see all of the scenes, and so they were kind of upset. But it's something to look at and just say, how can we do this? Because we do have more path in the area, and there might be a way to divert some people around and go through another portion of the pumpkin walk.
Yeah, that's right.
Or just push people through faster. No, I'll bring it up with them. Great point.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Let's approve our consent items, which is just the meeting minutes from October 8th. Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Let's move into our work session items, starting with a discussion regarding survey results for the electric motorcycle survey.
Now, this is raw survey data results, not a statistically valid survey. These are just the preliminary results to get information. And that's what we did. And that's why this is just a work session item. However, if I stumble as I go through this, Chief's here to provide backup. What's your age? This isn't the most pertinent question, but it does provide something, as in the respondents who did respond. So you see they're about middle age, most of the people, and then you have a few people or a significant amount that were younger, which is good when you see these types of results, because I think a lot of that younger crowd are the ones that are, sorry, I'm misreading this. It's above 55. So it's middle age to above that blue area. So we didn't have a lot of the younger crowd. This is key though. Do you or a family member have an e-motorcycle? The majority is no. The people that responded to this survey. hopefully you get a good representative sample of everyone that uses a e-motorcycle. But as you go through this, these are kind of coinciding with what we already knew. We'll get into some other slides that don't coincide with like our preconceived ideas or notions. But this one is, have you seen people operating unsafely? And as you go through all the comments, it's overwhelmingly yes. We've all witnessed people operating an e-motorcycle in an unsafe manner, and so that's pretty common. However, this is a key question. If children, total 15 were to obtain an OHV license, or obviously something similar, wear a helmet, operate under 50 miles per hour, and ride along the shoulder of the street, would you feel safe allowing them to operate on our streets? So it's the majority is around 60%, but there's obviously a lot of other thoughts that go into that.
Yeah.
And so there is a portion there. Yes, Chief.
Yeah, on this one too, this is interesting because this is what I'm hearing on the board as we work through our work group. The majority of the cities and PDs are also getting the same feedback, that if it were safe and if they were trained, they'd allow them on the road.
So Chief, just to clarify, that would make e-motorcycles different from other OHVs then, right? Because other OHVs, even if they're licensed and operating under 15 miles per hour and have a helmet, are not allowed on the city streets.
Right, so that's one of the things that is in the work group right now. Do they change that from make it a motor vehicle? Like they're looking at there's consequences with that either way. That's one
And
of the
what
things.
other vehicles are we talking about that would qualify? Like, is it
dirt-
four-wheelers and ATV? Like, is it also the,
Dirt bikes.
I mean, those
what
are
about the
basically
razors, like
The
the
e-scooters.
the e-scooters.
UTVs? Yes.
So that UTVs already, they have to be street legal if they're going to be on the road. So this would specifically deal with just the e-motorcycles
Okay.
on that.
There's a lot of good comments as you get through here. We might get to those that might answer some of the questions. Like the comments, the overwhelming comments that talk about what Chief's talking about. They're very good feedback. Like as you go through here, a lot of the open-ended questions. It's hard to analyze all of them. This one's very telling, especially since people don't know enough. And I thought this was key. The majority of people have admitted that they do not know enough about regulations to make a decision. And that's very honest. I think that's really the case across the board. I would expect that to even be higher. Okay,
Did it say what age group said it would be too strict?
no.
No.
And so as you go through this, the common open-ended questions, here's one side of the opinion. These were common. I just basically went through and there's 200 comments in there, but these are the common comments on one side of the issue. And it's very common. These are kind of the summary of those. And I can read these. I think it needs to be monitored and restricted. Children do not understand traffic laws. They have not had formal driving training, but they are essentially driving on roads like they have their license and it's going to end in tragedy. That is a very common comment, like across the board. We see that as we're looking through here. Basically, the key comment is children do not understand traffic laws. That's the key component about the safety.
So that seems contrary to the one question that said majority of people would be okay with children driving these things under 50 miles per hour and with a helmet.
That's if they know if they have a type of license.
They'd have to go like training.
Yeah. There you go. So reading through these, though, we'll go through all these and then we'll get to the next slide. I think there's going to be some fatal accidents if things don't change. They are being ridden in very dangerous ways, including at night with no or small headlights on them as well. Dangerous. These riders jump from the sidewalk onto the road, off driveways, pass you on the right and left side of my vehicle while exceeding the posted speed limit. Absolutely a danger to all around them. Young, inexperienced riders with no regard for anyone. They need to be regulated and they should not be allowed on bike paths or sidewalks. They should be treated just like a regular motorcycle. Riders need to have a driver's license. They should be registered, insured, and operated by a licensed rider with a motorcycle endorsement. I worry nothing will be done until someone is killed. If they're not street legal, they should not be on the streets. I also think there's a reason kids have to be 16 to get a license, and even 16 is too early for some. It's a huge problem that needs to be fixed. Maybe kids younger than 16, parents need to be ticketed if this problem continues. I also think this is a huge problem with electric anything without lights. I've almost hit multiple kids zooming around dusk or dark. So this is one side of the issue, and this is very common. So you have about half of the people commenting. These are very similar comments from a lot of the individuals. There's also about one half that say things like this. Is there a problem? No, no problem if they ride in a very safe way. I think it's fine if used responsibly and safely. It is appropriate as long as they follow general traffic laws, stopping at signs, no sidewalks, etc. Should be allowed as it can teach safe riding. Should be allowed, I think it's supposed to say if can teach safe riding habits. Also, if banned, kids will use bikes or other things in an unsafe manner. Do a trial phase with OHV permit. I think they're great, but feel like there needs to be some sort of certification or course for underage riders so they know the basics of driving laws. Please let boys be boys. You can misbehave on an electric scooter, an e-bike, a regular bicycle, a teen driver of a vehicle. Our youth need to have fun and get off their phones. This all starts with responsive parents holding their kids accountable to follow the law and be responsible. If a kid is being in a responsible talk, we'll just read it to the parents. If the parents don't correct the situation, then start citing the parents and it will stop. This was this bottom comment was very common right here. And hats off to the people that responded to these, both opinions, because they were very objective in looking at this. Yes, there's some emotion that goes into this, but they were both stating the problems that they're all experiencing. And then some people were stating like solutions about how this could be something that could take place, which is what we were looking for with this.
If I
type
can
of
just add though, like they aren't always off their cell phones while they're driving these. So ideally they are, but
I was gonna say, I've seen
personally
more than one kid crash.
I'm dead serious that yes, that is, I have seen them texting while driving, which is a very obvious thing. It's not like a car where you can't see in it. They're like
Yeah.
they're
I've
on
only
their
seen
phone
them
while they
filming
drive.
Filming
I was gonna
themselves
say, I don't
wheeling.
generally see texting. It's them. I'm like, you're clearly filming yourself.
So, which would be a violation of traffic laws, understanding traffic laws. One thing that comes up though that's really key when I read through these, and Chief will comment on these, that comes back, is that I think there is a component here. The majority of the issues are with the 12 to 15-year-olds that have no idea about traffic laws as you're looking through this and are clearly very dangerous in the way they're riding. Not all, but most, based off of these survey results. But it is amazing how fast people come back to the similar solution, and that is, one, if they did understand traffic laws, if they were riding safely, if they did have some sort of licensing, and then if the parents are somehow on the hook. Those are key components of the whole thing. I really like the aspect of the parents being on the hook as well. Like it says here, if the parents don't correct the situation, then start citing the parents and it will stop. That's a key component of everything. That was a very overwhelming comment that came through here, similar to that.
I would love to have the chief speak to that though, like
Yeah.
what your experience has been in contacting parents.
And
Yeah.
what citation would you give
Awful.
the parents in that case?
It's been a mix as we've contacted parents. Some parents have been, not my kid, and nope. They're not really willing to listen and understand the safety concerns on it. We've had other parents who have been very responsive and okay, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. So the majority though of what we're seeing is not my kid. My kid wouldn't do that. Can you prove it was my kid? That's kind of what we're seeing on that. I can tell you a couple of things that I'm seeing in the legislative work group on that. There is going to be some type of training component that comes out of it this next year. The Division of Natural Resources already has an OHV training, and there's talk in there about expanding that specifically for e-motorcycles. There's talk about a license and having them, if they do get stopped, the kids, they get points that go on that license, which would prevent them from getting their actual driver's license when they turn 16. There's talk about that.
How would you remove the points from your license if you had too many? Like, is it a fee? Is it an additional course?
I'm not sure. Our next meeting actually is tomorrow at noon on that. We'll be meeting with the juvenile justice representatives as well. The hard part for this is the enforcement on it. When we try to stop the kids, they run, and we don't chase them. The police, or we're not going to chase them for a minor traffic infraction right now because it makes it worse. It makes it worse for the kid. It makes it worse for the public on that. But we're starting to see things kind of ramp up too. We have a group of about a dozen here in North Logan and Hyde Park that a couple nights ago had surrounded a car. Our officer saw it, tried to stop them. They took off on wheelies, and so he followed them without the lights on. They stopped. The officer got out of his car and tried to approach him so he could talk with him, and they took off again. And it's just this. That's kind of what I'm seeing as other chiefs talk. That when officers try to stop them, they take off on them, and so the enforcement really is going to be a huge issue. I think we're continuing to see the problem because of a lack of training or education on what parents understand about it. So that I think will be a big part of it as well with that.
So Chief, is there legal precedent for citing the parents for the behavior of the children?
There is.
Okay.
There is. So the code that you would use right now would be allowing an operator to operate a vehicle that they're not properly licensed for. Currently, with an OHV, they do not have to have a license. The OHV laws, they changed several years ago to make it so that anybody could operate a vehicle, an OHV vehicle, as long as they could manipulate and reach the controls safely on that if they were on public land. Of course, these kids that we're seeing, the reckless, they're not on public land, they're on the public streets, which is not allowed. If they make it street legal, they have to have a motorcycle license. Well, let me back up. They have to have a license with a motorcycle endorsement on that if it's street legal. So your turn signals, your horn, your mirrors, your muffler, all the stuff, all the lights, all of that.
But very, very few of these are street legal, you said, right? At
Right,
least right now.
they're not street legal. They don't come street legal. It costs a lot of money to make it street legal. And so the parents are just buying them as is. So that's kind of where we're at.
They talked about the insurance side of things at all.
They have, so some of the challenges that you have when you change a definition from an OHV to a motor vehicle, as soon as you change it to that stipulation, you mandate registration, you mandate insurance, you mandate licenses. There's a lot of cost to that, and that's a huge consequence, I guess. So they're talking about that, about what that would mean for people. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I think, quite honestly, the talk that I'm hearing, it sounds like they want to do more training and some type of a digital license first.
How are they oh, sorry, Chief. How are they distinguishing between the typical 10-speed e-bike and then one of these more advanced? Are they saying if it has pedals, then it's exempt from anything there? Because, those bikes now are going up to 20, 25 miles an hour, much smaller, but.
So it's currently classified by wattage. So your e-bikes have a max of 750 watts. So that's your class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. The e-motorcycles go up to like 2,500.
It's really easy to distinguish based off wattage. Okay.
However, we have stopped kids in the last couple of weeks who have added pedals, zip-tied pedals on to their.
They're smart.
Yeah, they're smart because then it looks like an e-bike.
Onto their pegs, they would just zip.
I mean,
That's smart.
a minute, creativity. I honestly feel like our most important slide here, slide 6, where it just talks about, do you believe the current regulations in North Logan are too strict? And the fact that we've got most people saying, I don't know enough about the regulations to make a decision, means that really it seems like we need to focus on education as a huge issue. Is that something that they're talking about then as well with the state legislature?
It is. So part of that would be some type of mandate that would come down that would require the kids to go through the safety course, get a certificate on that. If they decide to do the license, then they get their license at that point. But yes, there is some talk of that training. The harder part is actually in training the parents on that. I mean, the parents really don't know what they can and can't do, and so that becomes the tricky part. We can do newsletters, we can do, our events and things like that, and trying to get booths out there and information, but the state faces a huge problem with that.
I am spitballing here, but is there an option where we could treat this a little bit more like we treat like dogs? Where like the city offers a licensing sort of thing that way, and you sort of have to register your e-motorcycle with the city? Is that it, like, I don't even know if that's at all allowed. Is that an option? And treat it a little bit more like you have this thing, now that to get a license in our city, you have to prove that you've gone through this course and you agree to these rules and you register it. And again, I don't know if this would work at all, but is that even an option there?
As far as the license through the city, I'm not sure. I do know that the city council and the mayors have the power right now to change what OHV's laws are in their city. If the city council went through and got information and said, yep, we're going to allow OHVs to be ridden or e-motorcycles to be ridden on the street, you could do that if they wanted to, which would then make it legal for kids to ride it. So
I just think the administration's really, really hard.
No, I like
also-
I said, I'm spitballing. These are not.
No,
the best
I think it's a good idea, and I think that ultimately what it highlights is that we need to see what the state's going to do, and then I think supplement with specifics in our city, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
we decide, do we, because we're going to have to respect whatever that statute says, and we have people in the room where that's happening, so that's really great. And then I think we can just say like, what do we need to supplement with, like on our removed paths, or, anyway, what do we need to supplement with? So that's kind of where I'm leaning, is saying, let's see what the state does. Do you get the sense, Chief, that it'll be this session?
I do.
Okay.
Every agency in the state is struggling with this, from all the way to St. George up to Rich County on there. It's a big issue across the state.
So administrative, what would that look like for us? Because I'm
Well,
going, why can't we be the first city to say, we've tackled this and here's what we're implementing? I mean, we're not going to make the decision overnight, but I'm going,
Because we'll be
Why
bound by
not?
whatever the state says. So
Yeah, so if we do something real quick by December and then the state has a licensing system, then the state has to fund that and like
Hmm.
implement it. Whereas if we're doing it just on a scale of our city, it's meaning we have an officer probably who's dedicated to registering
Exactly, and that's just-
vehicles. And then I
like I
think
said-
you always come back to, it's different than when you're in a car with a license plate on it. These guys can just tear off like whenever you confront them. That's I think the difficulty, right?
Right.
Whatever we do decide to do, though, I feel like it should be much like we did the water restrictions. I had multiple people say, like, oh, I had no idea that we had different rules. So whatever we do, they have mentioned, multiple people have said, it would be really nice, whatever is decided, if you would put it out the way you put out the water restrictions, because like, then no one can pretend they haven't seen it. And I thought that was about the best idea.
Well, and it can inform whether they buy them, because I've had several moms who are like, should I even buy an e-motorcycle right now, because is it going to get banned? So
I think a couple things to keep in mind though is it's setting up the police for success. So as you're going through these discussions, the chief has put himself in a position where he's part of this board and they're discussing these items, which is fantastic. Is setting you up for success. And what I mean by that is setting up some type of laws in place. All of these comments about safety and danger and just helping protect both the people on the street that are in vehicles and also the kids that are riding these. Whatever you do, that's the ultimate goal, is setting you up for, I should say, realistic outcomes, because if they ban them completely, I just don't see that being like the ultimate solution, although it would be the ultimate solution for safety. Are the kids still just going to ride and ride quickly? In your example of them riding around the car and just running away. And so having a more collaborative approach where we're educating, like Emily's brought up, and keeping everyone in the loop, and they're realistic laws and they're realistically enforceable. I think that's the key of this whole thing. Because if you come with a law that we all have to enforce, including especially the police department, that's going to be really tough. The other thing is the state law coming down, and then having the city have specifics. Like the last time we had this conversation, the council came back and said no riding on the paths. Like we have the 8-foot removed paths or 10-foot removed paths, which will only be going to become more prevalent. Then you go into the specifics Because if you go to a rural community like Trenton or Clarkson here in our county, they aren't going to have a removed path. So there's going to be blanket laws that come out, and then you could go more specific to say in North Logan, yes, it's a law, and yes, this is how they're regulated. But then you go one step beyond and say, and you can't ride them on the paths. Because there's a definite safety concern. There were a lot of survey comments on that, like no riding on sidewalks or paths. That was just overwhelming. That's a realistic comment, and that's realistically enforceable as well, in my opinion. It's just dangerous beyond belief if a jogger is going down a path and someone's coming there going 20, 30, or 40 miles per hour on that path, or a lot faster. But so those are the realistic, unique aspects just to our community, and I think when the state does come down, it'll be great to look at those specific things, working with the police department as to what we can
I
enforce.
just hope it's soon, because we're seeing so much more of it on 2300, they'll come and they do their wheelies, but then they fly through 1600 East. And I could see them from both 2300 and 1600. Then they fly out into and I mean, wheelie all through 1600 into the gravel pit. So, I mean, there's really nowhere you could get them there because they've got all kinds of accesses to run away from you. But we see that so much more now. Like just this last year, it's been so much more. And I mentioned to Alan, I was coming home the other night up 1900 to 1600, and this little guy on one of those scooters, electric scooters, was flying through, and he was in dark clothes. He didn't have a light on, and I just had that thought, like, just look again before you go, because it was late, and I didn't, there was no one else out there, but he came flying right through. So if I would have gone, I'm sure he would have hit the front of my car, if not the side. But that's where I'm just going trigger now, going, gosh, we need something, because they don't think about it. And he was right in the middle of the road. So it wasn't even like it could have just been
Yep.
an awful night for me and him. And I wouldn't want to.
Absolutely.
that.
I think this is one that we need to get right. And we have some time because of the cold weather that's coming up. So our focus as a department has been focusing on the reckless, the kids that are popping the wheelies. We're trying to stop those. The ones that are on the sidewalk, we're trying to stop them. I think as we work with the group, you're going to see something come out on that. It'll have a training issue. It'll have some sort of safety issues with it. But I think we need to wait and see what the state does. And then this next year, this next spring, we start talking about it more and enact it at that point.
So Chief, with the enforcement, can you help us understand a little better? Like I understand, is the difficulty in enforcement just the speed with which they can flee the scene? Like if you mentioned you don't chase them because it's a minor infraction. So if one of the officers was driving down the road and found someone walking down the road that was committing some minor infraction also, whatever it may be, would they, and the officer tried to stop them and they on foot just started running away, would the officer chase after them at that point?
Every situation is a little bit different, but
Okay.
the problem that you're seeing here, or that we're having, I guess, as we try to stop them, the kids take off at an egregious speed, an excessive speed on that, which puts them at risk. Quite often it's at nighttime, it's in the dark, so it doubles the danger, if not triples it, for everybody on the road on that. And so trying to stop them and chase after them at that point for a traffic offense, if something were to happen, then there's a huge liability that comes back to the department, to the city for, why are you guys chasing these kids? I don't want to have a kid who gets in a crash because we chase them on that. You hear terms like the police were driving that kid, because they were turning on their lights, they drove him to the accident. So that becomes our challenge, is if we can stop and have a conversation, that's fantastic. But the kids are smart, they're crafty, and quite often they are running on that. So
That's
actually
the hard thing, is like if they know that they can avoid a citation by just driving away at really high speeds.
And they're telling each other they can't do anything and they'll stop. So take off.
Right. So that is the challenge that we're facing with it. So it makes the enforcement extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But that's where the education component comes in that Emily talked about, where if we can spread it around the community, it becomes more of a cooperative effort. There's realistic expectations of both parties. Then it becomes, they won't run, or if they do run, you narrow it down over time as to which kids are the ones running away.
right? There's things like when we had last or 2 years ago, the bomb threat that came in at Walmart, and we had a picture of the kid. We put that out on social media, and within like 15 minutes, we knew who the kid was. So there's an option of getting the public involved on something like that through town hall meetings, through presentations at the school, things
Point.
like that, and getting their help.
Because you'll have body cam footage of these kids probably, right? So, or dash cam, so, okay.
There's a lot that's being done to try to correct the issue and help the issue here. So we're working on it, but it'll take time.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I think honestly, like at the end of the day, we're gonna have to get parents on board because I think you can only do so much until the parents parent. So, okay.
Let me know when you figure that one out.
All right, let's move on to discussing North Logan's quarterly budget report. Where's Scott tonight? Mm.
Sorry, we'll go through this fairly quickly. This is just a very quick summary. These are the quarterly reports, and as you go through them, there are some items related to sales tax that we can't share openly. They're confidential because they're specific to each business. So if you want to go through there's some very helpful charts and graphs in there. But we'll go through kind of the overarching high-level topics as you go through here. This is just a balance sheet. You're looking at revenues and expenditures year to date versus last year. And there's some specifics as you go through here as to why things might be a little bit higher or a little bit lower. In general, you can see the taxes are a little bit up. And when you're saying like taxes, you're primarily looking at sales and property tax. And we'll go through because they're a little bit more specific on the other slide. So sorry, let me pull this up in a slideshow. Again, these are general taxes as you look through here. And this is just year to date, what you're looking at. Is anyone not familiar with these? When we went through this with the Utah League of Seasoned Towns, I went through and it was kind of interesting to see all of the other cities. They started turning at the table and they're like, what does North Logan do? What does North Logan do? What does North Logan do? Because none of them had about half of these different things or taxes or other things that they'd been enforcing or that they knew about that they did have in place.
I did have a
So-
question on this slide, Alan, your Class C road funds. They look like identical from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, but your description says that it's down from last fiscal year.
So what this is this Class C road funds. That's a fancy way of just saying there is a tax at the state level that's collected, and it's a sales tax and an income tax. And what they do is they redistribute that around the cities throughout the state based off of our mileage of paved and it's Class C roads, so it's paved and or like gravel roads. We really only have paved roads in North Logan City that we include in this. What that would be based off of is the state's pool that they're working from. So that would mean that the state's pool has actually maybe gone down a little bit, slightly from last year, but not a significant change.
Okay.
It says 120,000 in '24 and 9,000 this year.
That's just disbursements, how they're working. They would be very similar each year. The tax that comes through is nearly almost identical each year unless we increase the amount of roads. Property tax, again, this is just based off of what's coming in. But they're almost the same every year. And we basically set this as a city, what property tax is going to come in. And North Logan, again, is in the bottom quarter of the county for property tax rate. But these just come in throughout the year. It depends on how people pay their property taxes throughout the year, whether they're through escrow or whether they pay them in one lump sum. But not major changes from last year. Building permit fees, the main reason that's down is we haven't had as much building taking place this year. We had a few subdivisions come in last year. We'll have some subdivisions come in that'll start building later this year. So you'll see that uptick in the spring. But our building permit fees were down this past year from the previous year.
So is that like the metered water sales on, 5 up from the bottom? Looks
Yeah.
like a significant change from
That's a
last year.
significant change. That's a reduction in what it was the year before. So what that meant is the year before, because of our water restrictions this year, they used a significant amount the previous year. So our education efforts were a little bit more successful this year than the previous year. But that results in less money coming in, but we'd rather have less money than more water usage. It's more difficult to keep up with the demand at that point. Looking through here, sorry, the sewer would be according to that, because sewer relates to water usage. Cash flow, I'll jump through this. Sorry, I'm gonna skip ahead because the thing that relates to this is this next slide. So these are just take-home items. If you look at this, the major revenue changes, last year we sold our old city office. That was a big bump that we didn't have in this year. And then you'll see soon receive donations. We've already received some, and then along with the $1 million match that we'll receive regarding the community center. Now, the one thing that's taking place this year that's a little bit more aggressive than a lot of previous years is all of the grants that we're using right now for all of the roads that we're putting in. And how we get reimbursed for those is different with each different project. And what I mean by that is the community center. So the fashion in which we're reimbursed is a specific way from the CIB bond that's paid for through donations, but that's how we get reimbursed. We have to cover that though with cash. So we pay that with cash and then we're reimbursed. There's a further delay though with things like COG project where we pay and then it's delayed a little bit later. That's like 600 East, 12th East. We've already done several portions of that this year. 2500 North 8th East is not a COG project, that's a CMAQ. And sorry, Kenny, I meant to look up the CM. It's an air quality and it's from the federal department that comes and pays for that one. And that's reimbursed in a certain fashion. 2850 North, that was paid for by North Logan City, but will be reimbursed through the CRA over time. The Main Street frontage, same thing. Chlorine contact chamber, that was paid for, the design was paid for the grant, the construction was paid for through North Logan City impact fees and through the fund balance. So that's one method. Rattlesnake tank, that one is paid with a match from our impact fees, but the majority is paid for through the bond. And then Elkridge East Pavilion, and the that was paid for this year for our RAPS project. But then later this year we were reimbursed for that, and then we will have to pay for the North Pavilion and the restroom, which is our RAPS project this year. Then we will be reimbursed through those. What that does though is we spend a lot in cash for all these, and then we have to be reimbursed. So budgetarily, we're fine. Cash, we drain a lot of cash doing these things and then get reimbursed for them throughout the year. And as Lindsay pointed out, the mayor, North Logan City has received, I don't know if that chart was extremely accurate because over the past 10 years, we have received the most from the COG and the CMPO for roads projects throughout the county. We've also received the most for RAPS. So COG, RAPS, and then donations, we've received probably 10 times what any other cities received in donations. So hats off to the mayor, council, and those that have been participating
And
in
staff,
that.
like truly, I think that at least with COG that we've received a lot of funding because we just consistently put up really great projects that actually, affect valley-wide, how people travel. So hats off to the staff on that. They set me up for success in those meetings, with all of the data. So
The other one is CMAQ. So we put in 2 roundabouts now through CMAQ funding. The total we received through that is $2.2 million from the CMAQ program, which is administered through UDOT, but it is a federal funding grant. And we've received double or triple what any other cities ever received through CMAQ. So these are the reasons that our property tax rate can remain at the quarter cost of most other cities while still completing all of these projects. So that explains more of the cash flow analysis if I go through all the projects that we're working on, if that makes sense. Sorry, I've flown through a lot of these. I brought it beforehand. If you want to go through the sales tax specific, go through the quarterly report. Scott does a very good job of detailing those items. And we're right on track with sales tax. It's about the same or a little bit higher than it was last year. Each year it grows a little bit. I don't know if there's questions or directives or anything specific about any of these.
I did have a
charts.
question on the sales tax. Is there a way to quantify the amount of tax that gets improperly allocated to Logan City? Like,
Yeah,
go back with the state tax commission, try to quantify that?
we can't do it 100% accurate, meaning Vicky has downloaded the 5 to 10 businesses she knows that receive it. The problem is that she'll correct it multiple times a year. And so she's located at least 5 to 10 of the businesses that we know about, and there aren't many more than that. But she's located those, and she reaches out at least 2 to 3 times per year to the state tax commission to correct that. But then somehow it gets reverted back throughout the year. So she'll correct it, state tax commission reverts it back. She'll correct it, state tax commission reverts it back. And so to say exactly how much each year depends on how fast the tax commission reverts it back to Logan City. And so they are receiving taxes, but not throughout the entire year because Vicky's correcting that. There are probably some other businesses that we haven't found yet as we've gone through this.
So that isn't the question to figure out why they're reverting it back?
She reached out to them and she even sat down in a lengthy meeting with them. And she received different answers from different departments of the tax commission. And then they actually contradicted each other internally, which I think is where the problem's coming from, as to how these are calculated and how they locate them with the zip code. Meaning they're contradicting themselves within, and that's where the problem's coming from. I speculate that this is a problem in just about every city across the state based off of their response so far, meaning they have differing ways of calculating them within their own department, and Vicky's trying to help them correct those for North Logan City at least. So that's where we are right now with the state tax commission.
So part of it is the confusion because we share a postal code with part of.
Correct. Postal code and name. Both of those come into play.
How hard is it to get a unique postal code for North Logan?
We have someone in the room that's actually reaching out on that currently. Our mayor.
I'm having lunch with Congressman Moore on Friday, so I'll see what I can do. But that's like getting the ball rolling. It's not an overnight thing.
So it literally takes an act of Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a federal department. It's the post office, so it would take
I
an
know
act of
that,
Congress.
but I thought Congressman Moore would have higher priorities than North Logan right now, like getting the government up and running.
How dare you? How dare you?
He's actually been very helpful in
Yeah.
several different topics that we worked with Congressman Moore on.
I don't disagree.
Very responsive. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's odd for a congressman to come to a city of North Logan size to help out. But he has been responsive, and so that's the first route to try and look into that and see what we can do. That would be one method. The other method is we'll continue discussing the name. That wouldn't correct the whole issue, obviously, changing a name. And so we're just going to look into that. And then we're also going to continue working with the tax commission. Vicky brought our accounts payable clerk has brought all of these things to light with his tax commission. Where the initial response we received, we'll say from an adjacent community and from the tax commission, was this doesn't happen. And then when she sent them Excel sheets, they have to say, we'll look into it. But she does that every year. So this is just bringing it more and more to light. These things need to be corrected. There needs to be a little bit more checks and balances on their end to make sure that these things aren't happening.
Yeah, and I want to be clear too about that I think Mayor Daines was concerned that we were making an accusation
Yeah.
that they were stealing it. That's definitely not the case. It's just a confusion, right? That stems from the zip code and the name, so.
Yeah, the two things that come up, Logan is not at fault in any way, shape, or form because businesses come in and sometimes they'll go to register in Logan on accident. And there's no way to really tell. I mean, they take their business application and they process it. And so I guess we can work with Logan a little bit better on that, which we do. We work very closely with them. The other thing is most of these taxes, they'll go directly to the state and then it's the state's decision at that point. So how is Logan supposed to know at that point either way? And so
Well-
they're not at fault at all.
You do put an address on the business application, do you not?
Yes.
So seems like if we got a business application for an address outside of North Logan City, we would redirect that to the right location, I would think.
If they apply to Logan, so I'll just give you an example. We've had pothole issues on 6th East, just as you're coming into North Logan. And when people reach out to Logan City several times, they referred them to North Logan, not in anything malicious, but they just say that's North Logan. And then we have to come back and say that's actually Logan. And it goes back and forth 3 times before we just send them a map. And so even that type of thing. And then I'll ask you questions like this. What city is, we'll just ask a specific question, the Maverick on 2500 North, what city is that in?
That's, I think,
North
I think
Logan.
it's-
It is North Logan. However, 8 years ago, it was Logan. And so just thinking through those things, if I ask you where the Hampton Inn or Neaters is located,
Logan.
Logan.
Logan, 8 years ago, it was North Logan.
Hmm.
So you have to keep those things in mind as
yeah,
well. That,
trick questions, man.
yeah, so if our businesses struggle, if we struggle with that boundary and everything else, the tax commission is going to struggle. So we do our best, though. Vicky is probably ahead of just about every city in the state about reaching out and notifying them of these issues. But a great question.
But you do have to consider her time too. Like,
Yeah.
as we've been trying to calculate the cost of switching this over, you think about shifting from like remediation to like changing over the name. At least that one's productivity that has an endpoint, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyway,
But-
we're gonna talk more about that later, but
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will.
That sounds good.
Great, though. This conversation, the dialogue, the results are only a net positive for North Logan City. Meaning we're helping keep the taxes here in North Logan City that should be here. And other cities are learning from that. We're having several cities reach out to us and say, oh, we need to look into this as well. So great questions there. I didn't know if you had any other specific questions about any projects or anything else coming up, specifically to the budget. This is just a general update. And I encourage you to go look at those charts in there. They're very informative from Scott. And then let me know if you have any other questions regarding those.
that's super helpful. I love that we're doing this. I think it's really helpful to just kind of have it all laid out for us. So, any other questions from the council? Okay, thanks, Alan, and thanks to Scott too. All right, let's discuss the proposed line for the Wildland Urban Interface.
All right, I'm going to wing this one. And as I get stuck.
Chief, you're
will.
on deck.
Sorry, this is supposed to be a high-level overview, and that's why I'm even just involved in it. Because when we get to the actual items on the next slide, Chief is going to have to go over these in the coming weeks. And sorry, Chief, we're putting you on the spot, but in the next week, couple weeks, we're going to have to look at a few things. Adopting the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code/Ordinance. And then the other one we'll go over is the implications of House Bill 48. So we'll go through those just generally this evening in very general format, knowing that in the coming weeks, they'll come back to you for approval. And we'll go a lot more into the details. This is just a general overview of the 2006 WUI code ordinance requirements. These are the elements of that. And Chief can go over those in detail. But this is just general items in that WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, that portion of that ordinance that we would need to adopt in the coming weeks and months. Weeks. Is that appropriate, Chief? Probably weeks we need to adopt that? End of the year. So we'll have that back to you before the end of the year. House Bill 48. I'm going to give the most high-level overview of this ever. House Bill 48 was passed with the best intentions. The reason I say that is because as it was passed, it creates sort of a pool of funds to handle some of these wildland fires. If you think of the North Logan fire up on the mountain that happened this year, near the mouth of Green Canyon or at the mouth of Green Canyon, we're going to guesstimate that it was around $1 million in costs. And so if you have that type of fire, and then you extrapolate that across the entire state of the major fires that occurred in the other areas throughout the state, there's a lot of funds that have to go into this. The intention of the House Bill 48 was to basically have the homes that are in the areas that are most susceptible to wildland fires pay into a pool to provide that increased protection for their homes. The intention was to have every home above a level 7 line, and we'll get to this in a second, the actual map. They'd be subject to a rough fee of, this is very rough estimate, of $500 to $700, and it'd be assessed and administered by the county and also FFSL, Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. However, the FFSL, in order to try and make this more of an effective ordinance, they kind of went a little bit beyond the level 7, and they wanted to go to a level 5. The only reason that was kind of alarming is because a level 7, we'll get to the map in a second, is way high up on the bench. It's at the edge of where the homes usually are. Level 5 went down to about Elkridge Park. That's pretty extensive. And that would go through the middle of all of those towns. So it would go through the middle of Logan, it would go through the middle of Hyde Park. It goes below Birch Creek in Smithfield. That's a pretty extensive jump, in my opinion. And so that's why our mayor's been involved. They've been working with the originators of this bill to say it needs to be more along the lines of the spirit and intent of what was anticipated. And hats off to them. Those individuals have taken that and they've kind of adjusted it back to what it was really supposed to be. And what it was supposed to intended to do. So this is a level 7 line. It's a level 7 and level 8. As you look at it, it's a raster data set, so it's pixels, it's squares. But as you look at that, you can roughly see where it would go through North Logan City. We've excluded out the level 5 and level 6, but those are the ones that go down to 12th East. That's pretty far through North Logan City. To think that the people that live near Elkridge Park would have to pay $500 to $700 a year. I don't know if it'd be that high, but somewhere in that realm for wildland fire protection is pretty extreme. We do know that there's 80,000 plus homes across the state of Utah that are above the level 7 line. So 80,000 homes in the state are above that line. In North Logan, there's only maybe one home currently.
That's a
wait,
lot
which
of
line is
money.
The lines, the 7 line, there's one home?
There's probably one, it's maybe
This
one
is the
home way
sixth
up on
line
the
that we were
bench.
looking
I was
at.
gonna
Which
say,
are we
'cause
looking, sorry?
I was
is it the
trying to look
orange?
at the next
No.
What are
one,
we
your
looking
next
Are
slide.
is it 6 up there?
That's 7 and 8. So that's 7.
Yeah.
I don't have them up, but 5 and 6 would go down to about 12th East.
Real quick,
This is a picture.
with the level 7, the small little artifacts of orange kind of further to the west, are those just artifacts of rasterizing the data, or?
Those are just
Yeah.
raster pixels that got
Okay.
picked up. So you'd have, what they do is they generalize the line and you'd follow kind of that boundary. So I just took that and I drew this. So that's
Oh.
basically following that west edge of the line. So you're barely almost touching maybe 1 or 2 homes in North Logan. And in the future, you would have, I was trying to figure it out, because our zone above that is an RE5, which is good. The state really benefits or looks smiles on that type of zoning. We did that for water reasons. We did that for access reasons, ingress, egress, and we also did it because of wildland fire protection. And so it's RE5. So above that line, you can only have roughly about 5 to 10 more homes in North Logan City.
So I'm confused, but your previous slide does not align with this one.
Yes.
Or I'm looking at it wrong, Alan, sorry. Because if you look like where I am. Oh yeah, okay, never mind, you're right. Sorry for ever doubting you.
Yep.
Got it wrong.
Don't doubt
It'll
Big
never
Al.
happen again.
Lessons
My
learned,
apologies.
Bussy. Okay.
I've been out for a while, okay? Give me a break.
No,
Welcome to meetings.
I think it is, I really like this and I'm excited to be able to adopt these things and I hope then we're able to follow all the rules. Is the maybe one home you say that's above this line, do they know that this is coming or like, are we gonna wait until will they be
We'll
informed?
wait.
Okay.
Because we don't know. And Chief will go over that in the next meeting as to actually what will take place. And we'll get into that in a second. So,
Sorry.
well, I'll go over it. The reason that we're doing this preemptively and going over this is the same reason that the mayor reached out and we started correcting it to bring it back to the spirit and the intent of the bill. That's why we're preemptively doing this, to try and bring other cities along. The other cities in the county, after Chief updated us, we updated all the other cities. None of the other cities had any idea that this was taking place. They had no idea that this bill was passed. They had no idea the implications of what would happen and the discussions with state lands. And so luckily since then, we've educated the other cities, and thanks to Chief, because he was the informed and the person that knew what was taking place and what we should be doing. And so I don't know how to say this, Chief, but you probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars for residents throughout the valley. Maybe they should send you a thank you card. But literally looking at this though, what we do want to do is come up with a realistic line that would literally say, like, some of these individuals might be in that area. And there's several factors that go into this of fire risk. And so what we're looking at is who are those people, or sorry, what are those homes, or what are those areas more than likely. Some overarching factors though that go into this, just in general. This has to do with both of these different ordinances that we'll look at in the coming months. North Logan is in a relatively good spot. The reason that we say that is because we've adopted Appendix D of the IFC, and we've developed with Logan and their emergency management plan. Hats off to them and our CERT team and Sandy Spenlove. In the last meeting, you guys adopted a community wildfire preparedness plan that includes evacuation plan. These are all key elements that North Logan City has in place. We have CERT, a CERT team that has over 100 volunteers in it. No other city even has a CERT team. They've started looking into it. They've tried to put together a few people. They attend our trainings in North Logan City. The county attends our trainings in North Logan City. And so hats off to Sandy for putting that together. We do have a CERT team in North Logan City. I don't think people realize that. Our residential zone, we mentioned this, is RE5 way up on the bench. That is fantastic, having that. And we'll go over this in a little bit, and Chief can probably speak to this as well, how that's beneficial for those people that might build there in the future. We do have water resources in place, which are only being bolstered through our new tank going in. We'll probably have another tank in the next few years that would be on the north side of the community that we're working on and looking at. Also, distribution lines to get water to those tanks is what we're looking at. So that fire protection through our water department is something that we're really looking into, having that in place. Fuels, I won't speak over the top to this. Chief could talk to that. But we don't have a ton of fuels. What I mean by that is we have grass up on the bench, and then we have Utah junipers now, and then we have some big tooth maple. We've noticed this summer when the big tooth maples, they don't burn very well. The junipers will light on fire, and they'll blow up and they'll fly all over the place. Those are the only things that are a real threat to homes, and it would be if you had a massive wind coming from the east that could take a juniper and throw it through the air. That is what we're looking at when you're talking about fuels. We don't have a ton of those either though, and there's a lot of separation in some of those areas. As you're looking at this, we have ingress egress over the bench. We still have to shore that up. But we do have two things that we worked on, and we had these in place with this in mind, and that is the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. We have the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, which can serve as a fire break and also quasi-access for some of the firefighters if they had to get up to these locations. And we do have an amazing fire department with the fastest response time, most qualified staff, and resources and apparatus in place. We have these things in North Logan City. Most of the other cities do not have a lot of these things that I'm going over. And so that is fantastic. Additional items that I wanted to look into. This will take place over time. This isn't something that we'll approve in the coming weeks or months, but it's something to look into. And Chief and Craig have been looking into these types of things, and they're part of the 2006 WUI ordinance, but we need to take them a little bit farther. The thing that's ironic about this is these are the types of things that we would implement for maybe level 7 and maybe level 6 throughout North Logan City in the future for homes that decide to build in that area. It'd be mutually beneficial for them because if they implement these things, that potential fee that will be assessed by the county would be reduced. By how much, we don't know, but it would be reduced, is what it says in the current bill. And so, as you look at these things, though, you might say, oh, some of these things seem very restrictive. Most of the homes that are being built right now actually implement these types of things. That's what's ironic. Like hardy board or cement, rock, brick, metal roof. That is the fad right now. So it's not anything extreme that we would ask these individuals to do. We could go into vegetation, and Chief might show some diagrams in the future that he's shown me that are very helpful that say what helped in the Pine Valley and the other areas by not having vegetation very close to the home and maybe just out a little bit further from the home. Closed office, closed gutter, and then water suppression, maybe sprinkled homes. These are the types of things we might need to look into in North Logan City to just say, if you're building in these areas, these would be things that we need to look into. Sorry, I've gone over this very quickly. Those are a lot of the things that we need to look into, but the keys, going back to this, or these are the two things the chiefs informed us of that we'll have to go over in detail in the next month or two that just basically say things we need to adopt. Yeah, Mark. They'd be city specific, but they come from recommendations from the IFC and other things that have been developed to say. Chief could speak to this. There's unique things in wildland fires where they look at those homes that did not burn. And
I'm
what
just
common
assuming that
things they
because
have.
this fire issue is bigger than North Logan, that
Yeah,
some uniform
No,
building code's gonna address this.
yeah, it's an excellent question. So those things are considered what they call a Class C non-resistant burning properties of those things. So yes, within the 2006 code, those items are listed and they're categorized. And if you look at the little summary sheet that Aaron Walker and Craig Humphreys put together for us, the Class 3 ignition list there, those construction items are clarified in all of there. So that kind of gives us the guide for above the line
So
enforcement.
we would adopt an ordinance that requires them to follow that Class C, and then the provisions are there already.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, and I think the high level thing, for the council is to try to keep it simple and do it in the tiers that are going to be required because of the date. So we adopt the 2006 WUI code just in its entirety is what the law says we have to do. But the enforcement of that code only happens what I would call above the line. So the above the line enforcement is the line that North Logan City, Providence all draw to say this is where we're going to enforce that code. It has no relevance to the state fees. It has no relevance to your classification. That is what every municipality is supposed to do with this law. And why it's been so difficult is we don't have that state map to try to coincide with, right? That's our missing piece. But here again, we can decide based on the data. So the maps that Alan has shown, that is from the URAP data from the state of Utah. So Division of Natural Resources has their wildland risk mapping. That's this kind of the pixelated map that they claim are 100 by 100 grids is what they claim. Their map that we haven't seen yet is done with new data and more sophistication. And where we got cross-threaded was this fear of the 5, 6, 7, what's it going to be? FFSL has said that they would have liked to have been lower. Now, I think with the actions of the mayor and people saying, whoa, is this going to really be 5? Because it's a huge, huge impact to all municipalities if it were the 5. We still don't know where it's going to be. I'm hopeful that it's a 7. I believe Representative Snyder assured us that it was going to be in the 7. But what you have to remember, we don't know if their 7 with their more sophisticated data actually lines up with the URAP. That's what's difficult in trying to educate. And the other thing to keep in mind in terms of understanding, I think there's maybe a little misunderstanding of what WUI is. Wildland urban interface isn't necessarily forest touching a home. It has to do, or the urban part of that is where your cities with, dense housing or neighborhoods bump the areas that aren't developed, okay? So now it talks about wind. Wind is certainly a factor. But what they're also considering in their map is ember carrying load. So in the event a neighborhood does catch on fire, how far can those embers potentially carry and a fire continue to roll? which is what the problems they get with these bigger fires now.
Why would that be? Like, what factors would change an ember load in that way?
Well, in terms of what is burning, so in terms of and so wind can be a factor in ember load, and the density. So if you have 4 or 5 homes burning at once, there are huge embers that come off some of those products that are burning, and even some of the vegetation in our can be possibly large load that carries as well. So with this whole 2006, the code enforcement, it does include defensible space and what you should plant. And the code even includes types of plants and trees that we should be planting in those areas. So the 2006 code should, I think the bottom line is for North Logan, should be a pretty small impact. If you feel good about saying, look, our line is relative to the 7 on the URAP map, then it'll be Scott's job to make sure that code is enforced and the city's job to enforce that code above the line. Beyond that, people are grandfathered in. It doesn't affect everybody else. But the next shoe to drop will be if it is the 7 and there are 10 homes in that area, they will additionally be assessed a fee from the state, and they'll by default be in the classification of 3, which is the highest risk in the high risk WUI. Okay, so that map, the high risk WUI map, is not the North Logan enforcement map, if that makes sense. So 2 maps. And so I think we just, with our best estimate of information, I think Scott's got a really good grasp of what's required in ordinance and how to implement it. I think it's just super important. Remember, we have not seen that map, and I'm super hopeful it's a 7. I'm super hopeful it's only $50 a household, like Representative Snyder's assured us. But I just saw the draft language today of the bill, which will be law, and it's still based on square footage. So if that means the average price for those homes is going to be $50, that means some are 10 and some are 150. I don't know how they run the program with that amount.
Well, and that
I just don't
letter, that assurance letter was from the FFSL. It wasn't even just from
Yeah.
Casey Snyder. So we at least have that to
Great.
show.
It's great. It's great. And so to me, if that's the way it comes out, fantastic. Very little impact. The impacted homes in Utah went from 85,700 clear down to 77,000 in a really short window of time after some conversations, I think. So that was really great, on the mayor's behalf. So I just want to make sure, wildland urban interface, the terminology and why it's called that is understood. And then just remember, we just really, the bottom line to do those 2 things, to create the map for North Logan City and adopt the 2006, also keeps us insured. The most important thing for you is it keeps us insured in the CWS program, which is the Cooperative Wildfire System of Utah, which is your insurance for fires like Green Canyon.
Which we had
At
to
the end of the
utilize.
day, what's that? Sorry.
We had to utilize that in August, right?
Sure, yeah. And the one of the very first calls from the FFSL after that fire, during the firefight, was to ensure North Logan City was current with their CWS program, which includes the CWPP, North Logan does a fantastic job with that. But the realities are, when you start calling in air support, it's big money. And so they want to make sure, hey, who's going to be responsible? So to me, those 2 things to finish before the end of the year are my biggest concern for us as North Logan City, to ensure we do those things, because we don't want to compromise or put any chances that we're not compliant with CWS.
So Chief, sounds like if the WUI line were drawn at a level 7, it would affect that handful of households in North Logan.
Yeah,
If it
very
were at a
few.
level 5, it would affect a good chunk of the city. Have we calculated at a level 6 how many households that would affect?
We didn't look at the 6. I think there is a 6
There is
in
a
that
6 map
folder.
in the directory,
Yeah.
yeah, and it looks like it wouldn't be too
Yeah.
cumbersome for the city, but it would definitely affect more than the 7.
Yeah, the reality.
Speak for
though,
yourself, Kenny.
Yeah, that's right.
As you look through this,
Right, depend if
You
live
bench
above
there's
or
well.
re-
No, I don't even think your house would be included, Mayor. It didn't look like.
there's realities though, looking at this. So keep this slide in mind. This doesn't go into all the other factors. As you look at that, the reality is level 7 is the reality for North Logan City for wildland fire. As far as a preventative factor, and also susceptible to wildland fires in North Logan City. Based off these factors, based off what we have in place, based off of our densities based off of every factor across there. Going to level 6, there are homes in the level 6 that couldn't have wildfire if it were Armageddon. So that's why we need to be very careful not to go too far down throughout that area.
Well, and yeah, I just mean like like you said, Chief, there are two different maps. The state might decide that level 6 is where they want to draw
They may.
their taxation
The-
map, right? Their
The problem
fee
with
map.
that though is the bill states level 7.
Does
So
it?
it's where
Okay.
that level 7 actually ends up being.
I see.
So they
Okay.
need to follow that.
So the inclusion of the level 6 map here was just for situational awareness then?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
and here again, to be clear, the only tool we have available that they've asked us to use is the URAP map from the DNR. That's where we pulled this data. We have not seen their data. We don't know if their 7 correlates with the 7 on the URAP
Yeah,
map,
right,
if that makes
right.
sense. So I would hope that it's super, super close. Hopefully it's just more current. It includes new neighborhoods, like some of the things Scott and Alan and I pointed out. Hopefully it's current data, but it's very similar. That would be the hope, but. And we're hopefully supposed to see it at any time. We were told it would be out by the end of October. And if that's the case, well, now we've got everything we need to help hopefully make a good decision for where the, above the line enforcement and code changes would need to be implemented. But
So if we get that implemented in November, like say it comes out next week, we get it implemented in November, we'll be good to go by 2026.
yeah, yeah. And I would say even if it's not, we hopefully we have enough information, we're comfortable to say, look, we could always shift the line in the ordinance if you needed to, if you felt like that. Because I don't know how much that line right there versus moving it to kind of when Alan and I were looking at it, like an imaginary 6.5, for example, that probably has much more impact on some potential new building versus what might build later on in the northeast part of North Logan. So I would say have it ready, based on what Scott, the data that Scott has and Alan, and just be, if the council and the city be comfortable with the line for ordinance, and if you have to adjust it, adjust it.
I think we need to be proactive about this though, based off of the way the bill has progressed from inception to where it is right now. We need to be proactive. What we've done to this point, what the mayor's done, what the chief's done, is really help steer it in the right direction. And I think we need to do that. And we can do that by going through and adopting this. Not only that, but I think we need to get with the surrounding communities and say, you need to do the same thing, and send them into the state and say, this is what we're thinking, this is based off of your data, this is what we would like to see in our communities.
Yeah, I can do that. I've already kind of initiated that conversation with the other mayors, but
Well, in our service area, to Mayor, just like I've tried to help with that. So I had a meeting with Mayor Wright in River Heights with their attorney, with John Jenkins, kind of explained the same thing. They're leaning towards the 7 of what's available.
I think he called
Ryan-
me at that meeting.
Did he?
Was I on speakerphone?
Oh,
I
were
think
you?
so.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. And I think Ryan in Providence, he's leaning towards the 7. His is probably a little more, but they have more potential WUI zone than really North Logan and Logan. They really do. They've got that high bench building that's going on. So he's kind of pulled his down and pulled it along main roads through there. It's very similar to a 7. So I think at least in our district, the areas that we protect, and Logan, and I had a meeting with the fire marshals today and then with Mike Desmoni on Monday, and we're leaning towards the 7 as well in Logan City.
How
So
about the north end, Smithfield?
I talked to Chief Hunt. It's been a couple months. He was just getting into it. He was
Okay.
just looking at it, but I'll have a conversation with him to kind of see, because the other part of this for me was Hyde Park. To have something
Yeah.
line up pretty close for North Logan City so that it makes sense, for those communities. And so I'll make sure I reach out to Jeremy and kind of see how far he's
Yeah, and let
gotten.
me know if you need my
I
help
will.
with the mayors, but it'd be nice to coordinate on that north
I
end
will.
and to also just kind
Agreed.
of as a courtesy, give them the heads up.
Agreed. Yeah, will do. Hopefully we see the state map, the high risk map soon. It would be really nice.
Okay. And kind of the benefit, I think, of some of this in land that hasn't been built on is that there's the elevated construction standards regardless. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah, and you probably and Alan mentioned it, a lot of the standards, particularly with access and water supply and things, you're probably already doing really well as a city, quite honestly. You're doing it. It's just once you're above the line enforcing, you do have to have the enclosed soffits. You do need to make sure your roof is non-combustible, Class C, right? All of a sudden, those things become ordinance and required in those building, enforcing that when they're being built. So there's some work to do for sure for the city, but hopefully that impact is, that line's, it's minimal.
I think it's fantastic as you see kind of, I don't want to call it a fad, but it's ironic how much of a
Yeah.
fad a metal or steel roof is right now. I mean, it's the classy thing to do. And so literally, I don't think portions of these roofs will automatically already be looking at metal. And so I think it's just enforcing those standards.
Yeah, the thing that'll probably get a lot of people will be their disappointment on how to landscape, because people love trees right next to their house. They love the shade, but they also love to carry fire if they're the wrong variety. And so in the event of a urban interface fire, those become super high risk. And so that will probably be a bigger impact. You don't realize, like, look, fire-wise landscaping, it can be very pretty, but it does kind of take away that ability for canopy carrying, fires to be carried through canopy along into the home. So
Best.
it does look a little different, but so
Thanks for that.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, let's move on to updates about our general plan and master plan. Scott?
Yeah, I do want to just hop into that folder real quick. In this folder, you'll notice I've dropped in the staff report that the Planning Commission will be looking at during their public hearing tomorrow. This staff report essentially gives it just a little bit more dialogue, but it's essentially taking the links that are on the planning website, the nlcplan.org website, and putting it into the staff report. All of these links have been publicly accessible on that website for months and months now. But we're coming to the point where we're wrapping up the text amendments. We've had multiple public hearings along the way. And this will be kind of that final public hearing with the Planning Commission in order for them to formulate a formal recommendation to the council. And that will likely allow it to come to you early November for adoption. But it is a lot of content, and that's part of the reason why I provided it to the council prior to the recommendation from Planning Commission, just so you can start digesting it. And if you guys have any questions as you look through that, feel free to reach out to staff. But this process is a culmination of several months leading back to March after the adoption of the general plan in February. We've been working on these text amendments to essentially take all the goals and policy ideas in the plan and put them into the regulatory environment in our code. And it's a very tedious process, trying to take all those ideas that are conceptual, visual in the general plan, and then put them in the various sections in our code where they would become applicable for new development. And as our community grows. So feel free to look through that. In that report, Alan, if you want to just scroll up one page, there is a master summary doc. This document is probably the most distilled document if you're wanting to understand what topics have been addressed, where in the general plan do those topics, where are they discussed, and where in the code have we made adjustments to address those goals in the general plan. So this is kind of that master summary, as bullet pointed as we can get it. And then if you look on those following links on the staff report, we go section by section in the code. So 12A, 12B, 12C, 12D. There's a summary document for each subsection. And then if you really want to get into the minutia and all the red lines, those red line documents are there as well for you. But that's as I guess as distilled down as possible, as digestible as we can make this large project, but it still is a lot of content. So I'd recommend you start taking a look at it. If you have questions, let us know. But that is what the Planning Commission will be working on tomorrow. They'll hold a public hearing, and hopefully we'll have a recommendation to the council in November. But do you guys have any questions on that, how this document's formatted or what's coming ahead on your agenda? Okay. That's where we're at, working forward. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Updates about our water capital improvement projects. Alan, you're taking this one?
I already went over that at the beginning of the
Oh, sorry.
meeting, in detail.
Okay, well,
Someone's spicy. So Alan's done. Please turn off your microphone. Updates on the Civic Center.
You just follow the agenda.
Sorry. Yes, the Civic Center, what they're looking at right now is they're trying to get the asphalt paved on the north side of the community center, obviously before temperatures get too cold to actually pave that. And then they're finishing up Area B and Area C. Area B is the elbow, Area C is the community center. And they're painting right now, and they'll do some trim work, which they've already started. They're hoping to get that wrapped up here in the next few weeks, into November, which would be good. And they'll start transitioning over, moving. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll have our Christmas party there, or it'll be up and running by that time. But
I'm still holding out. hope.
Mayor's still hopeful. But it is going along well. And right now, Trent's just wrapping up a lot of the furnishings for those areas, the shelving, all of those things. And so those will be up and running. And then we're still just working on some of the final fundraising elements of that. Naming of rooms, donor wall that will go up there with recognizing people that really wanted to participate and donate to this building, which is fantastic.
Perfect. All right, we'll get all of the updates from our city officers now. Scott?
Just one quick announcement. So the Cash Summit, it's an annual summit for local leaders, is next week, Monday, October 27th and Tuesday, October 28th. They're kind of shifting how this is laid out. So on the 27th, essentially it's just site visits and walking tours and that kind of stuff. And then on the 28th, there's in-person sessions. But if you'd like to go to that, let me know. I'd be happy to get anybody registered who'd be interested in attending. It's typically topics like housing, zoning, things like that. Issues that are more regional to Cache Valley. So if you'd like to go to that, let me know.
You said it's called the Cash Summit.
The Cache
Okay.
Summit. Yeah, that's,
It's really
Uh,
worth going to.
Remember, it's okay.
yeah, I have to look. I mean, it's fairly inexpensive. They do feed you lunch, so it's part of the registration fee.
And it's a
Um,
long day. It's like 9 a.m. to
Yeah,
7.
it's a full day, and it's down at the River Woods on the south end of Logan. So there's a registration requirement, so we can't just show up and attend. So if you want to go, let me know.
27, what were the dates again? Sorry.
Monday, Tuesday, right?
Monday, Tuesday next week,
27th,
27th and 28th.
And you said the 27th is mostly,
Like walking tours, site visits, kind of out and about, touring various aspects. I haven't even looked at the agenda. This is something that came up as a kind of a last minute announcement, honestly. But the state housings are, Steve Waldrip will be there to discuss state housing policy. A couple other folks will be there as well. There's good information there, but it's more regional in its focus for regional topics and issues.
Can you send us a link on?
Yeah, I'll shoot out an email just to everybody can see the flyer. That's it.
Okay. All right, Alan.
Let's go through a few of the events coming up. So thanks again for everyone attending the pumpkin events earlier on, part of Pumpkin Days. The remaining ones are the Pumpkin Carnival. That's this Friday at Green Canyon High from 6 to 8 p.m. That's very well attended. That's a great kids atmosphere. Pumpkin Toss and Pumpkin Drop. We call it the Pumpkin Drop now because last year they added the crane that raises a 700-pound pumpkin up to about 200 feet, and then they drop it onto a minivan this year. So that was a fantastic addition this last year. And I believe we have the ASME group has lined up. I think there's over 22 teams this year. We've never had over about 16 teams for the toss. So that should be fantastic to have so many teams out there. A very fun event at the toss. And then the library has the trick or treat. That's throughout the entire operating hours on the 31st on Halloween. Elections on the 4th, and then fall cleanup is on November 15th. We just do this one day spring cleanup and one day fall cleanup. It's on that Saturday. It's usually just from 8 a.m. until they're full. That's usually around 10 or 11 a.m. Great event. And then the employee Christmas party on the 3rd. One other thing I was just going to ask your opinion on, and maybe just get with me when you can. I don't mean to give too big of a speech on this, but right now we're having a lot of feedback from businesses. Their assessed value is very high. And the problem with that is we are taking the questions. So people are asking us why their assessed value has skyrocketed this year. And then the county's also discussed raising their property taxes at the end of this year. And so we're going to get more questions. I don't know what we can do in this regard to clarify. Businesses don't like cities to pass the buck, but this really has nothing to do with the city in any way, both the extremely high assessed values, the massive jump in increase in assessed value for businesses, and then also the increase that's taking place. I don't know if we need to get out ahead of the curve and send it to these businesses and just say, because we have a contact for the businesses in the community, and just say, these are some resources that might be available. If you have questions, please direct them to the county. Here's where you can go at the county if you have questions about property tax increase or your assessed values. I don't know if we're too late regarding the assessed value for them to contest that, but if they are talking about increases, it's just an opportunity for them to ask questions. I would hope that they would just ask questions of the county about these types of things. One thing that I would bring up, though, is I hope that the county will reach out to the cities and other entities before they do massive increases, because they really do need to look internally first. I'm just going to bring up a sob story that no one wants to hear, but for my first 10 years with North Logan City was not in the best way financially. The employees of the city averaged a 0 to 1% increase in raises during that entire period. The county is in a much worse financial situation and looking at massive increases. They cannot do that. They need to look at that. The reason I'm bringing this up is because tomorrow night, this isn't the time to talk about that, but there's a event in Smithfield talking about the governance of the county. There's a public hearing regarding the governance of the county. That doesn't really directly pertain to property taxes. However, it's an opportunity to raise some questions at that time. So that's it. The Smithfield City Council chambers tomorrow night at, I believe that's 7 p.m.
What specifically about the governance of the county are they seeking input on?
It's a group that's put together the study. Actually, former Mayor Can is helping put that together.
Oh.
And they're looking at the actual governance structure of the county to see what would be the most effective. But there's key questions inside of the survey. It says, is this a governance issue or is this a personality issue? It comes out directly and asks that inside of the survey. And that's a key question. That's a key question. Are these financial woes due to the governance or are they due to the personalities related to that?
So that was Smithfield Council Chambers at what time?
7 p.m. tomorrow night, Thursday.
And Damon's been really involved with that, which is kind of cool. So.
But key questions. I would just hope that residents are aware of these things. I don't know if we need to send out a letter. Let me know if you guys are getting complaints. We're getting a lot of complaints at the city level about these massive increases in assessed values and also hearing about property tax increases. I would hope that they would look internally at opportunities to reduce expenditures. And then if they still need to look at increases, great. But they really do need to look at that before they start talking about raises for employees. I'm sorry.
So I haven't even looked at my assessed value this year, but last year I know was a big jump from the prior year. So is this year another big jump from last year?
Depends on when your home was built and it depends on geographic area. But what we do know is the commercial businesses are the ones that saw massive increases this year.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that residences didn't. We haven't had a lot of complaints from residences. We're having a large amount of complaints from commercial businesses. And they come to us to complain and we try to direct them to the county. They're just mad about these types of, and I would be too if mine tripled in 1 year. They need to look at that.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the council? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, we have 2 mayors representing us. Thank you. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion
Second.
by Buzzy, second by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?